Let's continue our journey into the Marvel Universe today. Captain America, The Winter Soldier might just be the best film in the entire Marvel series. The director has incorporated the structure of the Bourne Identity and Mission Impossible into the superhero movie, which is simply a blow to other Marvel series. Some people say that it would not feel out of place to consider Captain America 2 as a sequel to the Bourne Identity. What's the deal with that? Let's dive in and find out. Speaking of which, ever since the Battle of New York and the Avengers, what have these superheroes been up to? Iron Man developed severe anxiety and built over 40 Iron Man suits in one go. But after defeating the villain Mandarin, he decided to retire, destroying all his Iron Man suits like fireworks, all just to win a smile from his beloved. And in reality, Robert Downey Jr., who plays Iron Man, no longer appears in standalone Iron Man movies. As for Thor, he was utterly exhausted, with his body nearly drained. The Bifrost Bridge was destroyed, and rebellions were breaking out across the 9 realms. He spent every day fighting, leaving him no time to rekindle his relationship with his Earth girlfriend, Jane. Then there's Malekith, a dark elf who tries to seize the ether, but in the end, Thor defeats Malekith and goes on to live a happy life with Jane. As for Captain America, things got interesting. He experienced the life of a secret agent, just like Tom Cruise and Matt Damon. Ever since Captain America woke up from the ice, he has been in the 21st century. He is confused by the world, and everything is new and strange. He spends his days punching a sandbag, trying to vent his feelings of helplessness, until one day, S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Fury recruits Steve to join the Avengers to defeat Loki and the Chitauri army, and Steve seems to find a new reason to live. Even though he's in an era of peace, Steve chooses to stay with S.H.I.E.L.D. and continue to serve his country, showing that he's always been a staunch patriot. In fact, Steve has a personal reason for staying with S.H.I.E.L.D. He hopes to use their resources to find Peggy. By this time, Peggy is elderly and suffering from dementia. She has her own family now and has lived a fulfilling life. But on her deathbed, the person Peggy still longs for is Steve.
It's been so long. So long.
The Steve who, despite his small stature, would jump on a grenade to save his comrades. The Captain America who would storm a HYDRA base alone to rescue his friend Bucky. One morning during his routine jog, Steve encounters a retired veteran named Sam Wilson, who would later become the Falcon and eventually take up Steve's mantle. The two hit it off immediately. When Sam learns that the man in front of him is Captain America, he's filled with admiration. In that moment, Sam is already prepared to become Steve's loyal follower. They only exchange a few words before Steve receives a new mission, and Natasha arrives in a sports car to pick him up. Steve's mission this time was to rescue the S.H.I.E.L.D. senior agent on the cruise ship hijacked by the militants. The hijackers demanded a ransom of $10 billion from the U.S. government. After assessing the situation, Steve quickly formulates an operational plan. Step 1. He infiltrates the ship alone. Jumping from a high altitude, he plunges straight into the ocean, then climbs up the anchor chain to the deck. Silently, he takes out a patrolling guard, then throws his shield, using the ship's hull to ricochet it and neutralize 2 more hostiles. Before moving inside the ship, he climbs to a high vantage point and fires a listening device, confirming the location of the leader, Batroc. By this time, Batroc is growing agitated due to the delay in receiving the ransom and is considering making an example of one of the hostages. Meanwhile, the rest of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Special Ops team has gradually secured positions across the ship. Steve quickly pinpoints the locations of all the hijackers and places a breaching charge on a steel door, awaiting further instructions. At the same time, Steve is also waiting for news from Natasha, who is in charge of controlling the ship's engines. Natasha effortlessly neutralizes the guards in the engine room. Steve issues the command to attack, and within moments, the Special Ops team eliminates all the hijackers. When Batroc realizes something is wrong, Captain America's shield smashes through the window. Although Batroc tries to fight back, all of his attacks are deflected by Captain America's shield. To prove he's not hiding behind his shield, Captain America puts it away, removes his helmet, and engages Batroc in a fair fight. However, Batroc, not knowing his limits, challenges Steve, but after just a few exchanges, Steve subdues him with a powerful roundhouse kick. When Batroc attempts to resist again, Steve tackles him into a cabin and finishes him off with a punch, rendering Batroc completely incapacitated. At this point, Steve turns to see Natasha casually standing nearby, mysteriously copying all of S.H.I.E.L.D's data from the ship. Steve is clearly displeased with her insubordination. No sooner does he voice his displeasure than the previously unconscious Batroc suddenly gets up and throws a grenade at them. Although they narrowly escape the explosion, Batroc takes advantage of the chaos to flee. Back at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Steve expresses his dissatisfaction. Fury, with no other choice, patiently tries to explain the situation to Steve.
Those hostages could have died, Nick.
I sent the greatest soldier in history to make sure that didn't happen.
Soldiers trust each other. That's what makes it an army. Not a bunch of guys running around shooting guns.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. I didn't want you doing anything you weren't comfortable with. Agent Romanoff is comfortable with everything.
I can't lead a mission when the people I'm leading have missions of their own.
It's called compartmentalization. Nobody spills the secrets because nobody knows them all.
Except you.
When the explanation doesn't satisfy him, Director Fury decides to take Steve to S.H.I.E.L.D's secret underground facility. On the outside, it appears to be an ordinary building, but inside, it houses a massive weapons factory. This is S.H.I.E.L.D's biggest secret, and they've named it Project Insight. The plan is to use alien technology recovered from the Battle of New York to construct 3 helicarriers. Each carrier is armed with over 200 heavy cannons and dozens of fighter jets, designed to operate continuously in low Earth orbit. Combined with an all-pervasive surveillance system, they can instantly eliminate potential threats from thousands of miles away. However,
Neutralize a lot of threats before they even happen.
Thought the punishment usually came after the crime.
We can't afford to wait that long.
Who's we?
After New York, I convinced the World Security Council we needed a quantum surge in threat analysis. For once, we're way ahead of the curve.
By holding a gun to everyone on Earth and calling it protection.
You know, I read those SSR files. Greatest Generation? You guys did some nasty stuff.
Yeah. We compromised, sometimes in ways that made us not sleep so well. But we did it so that people could be free. This isn't freedom. This is fear.
S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as it is, not as we'd like it to be. It's getting damn near past time for you to get with that program, Cap.
Steve cannot agree with Fury's dangerous mindset. If this plan is implemented, they could kill anyone they want. Even the President of the United States wouldn't survive 3 seconds. They each express their views, and Steve, filled with righteous anger, storms off. But in truth, Fury had Natasha gather the data because he suspects that Project Insight has a hidden agenda. Fury discovered that he doesn't have full access to some of the Project Insight files and oddities since he's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. The only other entity with such authority would be the Security Council, so Fury goes to the office of Secretary Pierce. At that moment, Pierce is facing questioning from the World Security Council. The recent hijacking, they argue, proves that the superheroes are incapable of preventing threats, so they urge Pierce to expedite Project Insight. Fury, however, worries that someone in the upper ranks might be compromised, and he tries to persuade Pierce to delay the plan. As an old friend and comrade, Pierce agrees to help him.
But you gotta get Iron Man to stop by my niece's birthday party.
Thank you, sir.
But Fury never expected that his well-meaning request would bring disaster upon him. Soon after, he notices a police car tailing him. The next second, a car suddenly crashes into Fury's vehicle from the side, pushing him off the road. A group of police officers quickly surrounds his car, trapping him inside. Before Fury could react, another team of heavily armed soldiers arrived and began relentlessly firing at his vehicle. He tried to escape, but the propulsion system was damaged, and the vehicle's safety features were rapidly failing. When the police realized that their standard firearms couldn't penetrate the car's defenses, they started using sledgehammers, attempting to smash the windows.
One window integrity. Propulsion systems now online.
Fortunately, Fury was able to break through the police blockade using his vehicle's advanced weaponry and cutting-edge autopilot technology, and then he took back control of the car. At that moment, a masked figure tossed a bomb under Fury's car. This masked figure was none other than the Winter Soldier. Making his first appearance, the Winter Soldier thought he had Fury cornered and was certain of victory, but he underestimated the sheer amount of high-tech gadgets Fury had at his disposal, allowing him to escape once again. Badly injured, Fury took refuge at Steve's apartment. When Steve returned home and saw Fury there, he was shocked. Fury pulled out his phone, warned Steve that there were bugs everywhere, and informed him that there was a mole inside S.H.I.E.L.D, saying that Steve was the only person he could trust now. But before Steve could respond, a gunshot suddenly rang out from behind the wall, and Fury collapsed to the floor. Steve quickly pulled Fury into a secure area and prepared to go after the shooter, but Fury grabbed him. Fury handed Steve a flash drive containing S.H.I.E.L.D. data, instructing him not to trust anyone. Before falling unconscious, the nurse who had been living next door to Steve turned out to be S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent 13, Kate, who had been assigned by Fury to protect him all along. After entrusting Fury to Kate's care, Steve set off in pursuit of the shooter, S.H.I.E.L.D. in hand. Steve burst out of the building and leaped to the one across the street, using the S.H.I.E.L.D. to clear his path until he finally caught up with the fleeing assailant. But when Steve tried to throw his S.H.I.E.L.D. to stop the man, the assailant caught it effortlessly with one hand. Then, almost mockingly, he tossed the S.H.I.E.L.D. back to Steve, who felt an unusual heaviness as he caught it. By the time Steve regained his composure, the attacker had vanished without a trace. The injured Fury was rushed to the hospital. Fury was pronounced dead during surgery. Watching Fury pass away, Natasha was filled with grief and frustration. She demanded to know what secrets Fury had shared with Steve, but recalling Fury's dying instructions, Steve bit back his words. Just then, Brock arrived to summon Steve back to S.H.I.E.L.D. Knowing that there might be a traitor within S.H.I.E.L.D, Steve temporarily hid the flash drive in a vending machine at the hospital. However, when Steve returned to S.H.I.E.L.D, he was hit with a shocking revelation. The hijackers who had taken the ship were now in custody and had implicated Fury as the mastermind behind the plot. Steve was filled with doubt. How could Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D...
Are you saying Fury hired the pirates? Why?
With the prevailing theory was that the hijacking was a cover for the acquisition and sale of classified intelligence. Sale went sour, and that led to Nick's death.
If you really knew Nick Fury, you know that's not true.
Why do you think we're talking?
Be posthumously accused of such a crime? Because Fury had saved Pierce's daughter when he was undercover in the Middle East. Pierce promoted Fury to the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury was both a benefactor and a friend to Pierce, so Pierce insisted on knowing what Fury was doing at Steve's apartment the night before and what he had said. But Steve, remembering Fury's last words, resolved not to trust anyone.
Captain, somebody murdered my friend. I'm going to find out why. Anyone gets in my way, they're going to regret it. Anyone.
Understood.
However, as Steve stepped into the elevator, Brock and his special ops team followed closely behind. Steve noticed the crowded space and the tight grips on their weapons. He knew what they were planning.
Does anyone want to get out? Before we get started...
As soon as Steve spoke, chaos erupted in the elevator. Steve transformed into an elevator warrior, taking down all his opponents. But outside the elevator, there was another large group of heavily armed soldiers. Steve quickly cut the elevator cables, escaping from the high floors. He finally fell to the 33rd floor, glanced at the height, then raised his S.H.I.E.L.D. and smashed through the window. With the S.H.I.E.L.D. protecting him, Steve landed safely and rode off on a motorcycle to escape S.H.I.E.L.D. When faced with an aircraft blocking his way, Steve dodged the machine gun fire by swerving left and right. He threw his S.H.I.E.L.D., damaging the plane's engine, and then made a sharp stop, leaping onto the aircraft. Steve landed gracefully as the out-of-control aircraft crashed on the spot. Now that Fury was gone, Steve had become a fugitive. The World Security Council, ignoring Pierce's objections, demanded that Pierce immediately restart Project Insight. All of this left Steve utterly confused. He was desperate to uncover the secrets hidden in the flash drive Fury had left behind. When Steve sneaked back to the hospital, he found that the carefully hidden flash drive was already gone. Luckily, it hadn't been taken by a stranger. To avoid detection by S.H.I.E.L.D, Steve and Natasha headed to a tech store in a mall. With Natasha's top-notch hacking skills, they managed to decrypt the information on the flash drive before their pursuers could catch up to them. The information contained only a simple map, marked with a mysterious address. This address was not unfamiliar to Steve. It was the training ground where he had trained as a new recruit during World War II. Revisiting the site brought back memories from decades ago. However, the connection between this location and the secret Fury left behind remained a mystery. As Steve and Natasha pondered, they noticed a building that caught Steve's attention. Inside, they discovered that it was S.H.I.E.L.D's first office from its early days. Back then, S.H.I.E.L.D was still known as the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division, a special force dealing with various strange events. Photos on the wall revealed that it had been founded by Steve's beloved Peggy, along with his military drill instructor and Iron Man's father. Steve and Natasha then found a secret elevator leading to the basement, where the room was filled with vintage computer equipment from the last century. When they inserted Fury's flash drive into one of the machines, Zola's face appeared on the screen. It turned out that after the Allies' victory in World War II, the U.S. military absorbed a large number of German scientists through Operation Paperclip, including the brilliant Zola. Zola quickly established himself within S.H.I.E.L.D. and uploaded his consciousness into this computer system. Through Zola's revelations, they learned that S.H.I.E.L.D. had long been infiltrated by HYDRA members, and S.H.I.E.L.D. had become a puppet of HYDRA, but they only realized it now, which was obviously a bit late. Zola had already sent their location. A short-range ballistic missile was headed straight for them. Luckily, Steve managed to open the sewer duct, and they narrowly escaped by using his shield for cover. Climbing out of the rubble, Steve carried the unconscious Natasha. To stop HYDRA's plan, they decided to take refuge at their friend Sam's house for the time being, and began planning their next move. Based on Zola's account, they deduced that the mastermind behind it all was Pierce, as he was the only one with the authority to launch Project Insight's missiles. To stop Pierce's plot, they would first need to capture a HYDRA agent to extract their motives. But by now, Steve and Natasha were already fugitives. If they showed themselves, they would surely find themselves in dire straits. Fortunately, Sam was willing to stand up and help them. They used a sniper rifle to force Jasper to the rooftop. Steve had already been waiting there for some time, pressing Jasper to reveal HYDRA's sinister plans. However, Jasper knew full well the righteousness and moral boundaries of Steve's character, and he was confident that Steve would never resort to torture for information. Teetering on the edge of life and death, Jasper ultimately divulged all the critical information he possessed without hesitation. It turned out that Project Insight and the helicarriers had been HYDRA's ambition from the very beginning. Their goal was to use military force to completely enslave humanity. With the advanced algorithm left behind by Zola, HYDRA could accurately predict every person's future actions and use big data to analyze who might pose a threat to their organization. Once the helicarriers were airborne, they could instantly eliminate all these potential threats. It was clear that superheroes like Iron Man and Captain America would be at the top of their hit list. And now, with only 16 hours left until the helicarriers launch, they quickly decided to drive to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, planning to use Jasper's identity to infiltrate the helicarriers. However, just as they were about to arrive, a cold, metallic hand suddenly smashed through the window and threw Jasper out, killing him instantly. The sudden attack caught Steve off guard. He quickly pulled the handbrake, using the car's momentum to throw the attacker off the roof. In the intense confrontation, Steve finally saw the attacker's face. It was the same assassin who had ambushed Director Fury, the Winter Soldier. Before Steve could regain his composure, an armored vehicle rammed into them, forcing their car into a perilous situation. The Winter Soldier leaped onto the roof of Steve's car, tearing off the steering wheel with a single pull. The car went careening out of control on the overpass. Finally, with Steve's determined effort, he and Natasha managed to steady themselves, but their relief was short-lived. Just as Steve regained his footing, he was hit by a fierce attack from the Winter Soldier, who blasted him off the overpass with a mortar. Meanwhile, Natasha and Sam were dodging heavy gunfire as they tried to escape. Using her agility, Natasha skillfully maneuvered through the hail of bullets, jumping off the bridge without giving her pursuers any chance. The Winter Soldier attempted to snipe Natasha but was outsmarted by her. She turned and fired at him, shattering his goggles and enraging him further. He handed Steve over to his subordinates and leapt off the bridge to pursue Natasha, but this turned out to be his biggest mistake. Despite the intense firepower, Steve's indestructible shield made the attackers' efforts futile. Steve charged through the hail of bullets from the Gatling gun, taking out the heavy gunner. Sam covered Steve on the bridge and eliminated the other attackers. On the other side, the Winter Soldier was distracted by Natasha's clever use of a phone to divert his attention. When he threw a grenade at her, it missed entirely, and instead, Natasha used a stun device to temporarily disable his metal arm. However, this minor setback didn't stop the Winter Soldier's assault. He quickly recovered and landed a critical blow on Natasha from behind. At that critical moment, Steve arrived just in time, kicking the Winter Soldier's weapon away. The two then engaged in a fierce hand-to-hand battle. Though the Winter Soldier's metal arm possessed incredible strength, Steve's combat skills were superior. He skillfully used his shield to disable the Winter Soldier's arm. With a powerful throw, Steve slammed the Winter Soldier to the ground, simultaneously removing his mask. The face beneath the mask shocked Steve, as memories from the past came flooding back.
Bucky? Who the hell is Bucky?
But in that brief moment of hesitation, Bucky had vanished without a trace, leaving Steve, Natasha, and Sam standing there in shock. Moments later, they were arrested by the arriving S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Steve's heart was filled with confusion and disbelief. He couldn't fathom that his closest friend, Bucky, was still alive. After all, he had witnessed Bucky fall into a deep icy chasm, leaving no chance of survival. Even more incomprehensible was why Bucky would try to kill him. But an even greater shock awaited Steve. The two guards escorting them suddenly turned on each other. When one of the guards removed his helmet, it turned out to be Agent Hill. There to rescue them, Hill took them to a secret base, where Director Fury, presumed dead, was miraculously lying on a bed. It turned out that after realizing there was a mole within S.H.I.E.L.D, Fury had anticipated the danger of staying in the hospital. So, he used pufferfish toxin to stage his own death. The group quickly pooled their information. To thwart Hydra's plot, they decided to replace the targeting chips on the helicarriers with the control chips they had on hand. This daunting task naturally fell to the strong and capable Steve and Sam. Steve and Sam secretly infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Through the intercom, they revealed Hydra's evil plan to the unsuspecting personnel. Faced with the exposure of the plan, Pierce immediately ordered his men to storm the control room and forcibly launch the helicarriers. Upon learning the truth, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents quickly reacted, and chaos erupted in the control room as both sides engaged in a fierce battle. Meanwhile, Brock seized the opportunity to initiate the launch sequence of the first helicarrier. As the hangar doors slowly opened and the engines roared to life, the first helicarrier began to rise. Steve, using his agility, dodged the ground forces' attacks and successfully infiltrated the interior of the third helicarrier, which had not yet taken off. He quickly found the targeting chip and replaced it with the control chip. At the same time, Sam, relying on his exceptional flying skills, reached the second helicarrier and completed the same task. Sam then picked up Steve, and they headed to the first helicarrier to complete the final task. However, just as they were about to succeed, Bucky intercepted them. With a powerful charge, Bucky knocked Steve off the ship and then launched a chain that flung Sam onto the deck. After disabling one of Sam's wings, Bucky kicked him off the helicarrier. Luckily, Sam had a parachute, which saved his life. The responsibility of replacing the chip now fell solely on Steve. Although the previous blow had knocked Steve to the edge of the deck, his indomitable will drove him to climb back up and slip into the helicarrier through the exhaust vent. But waiting for Steve inside was his friend Bucky's cold, unfeeling figure. Steve tried to reach Bucky with words, but Bucky's expressionless face made Steve realize the harsh truth: this wasn't his childhood friend standing before him. It was Hydra's enforcer, the Winter Soldier. To save humanity, Steve knew he had to defeat the enemy in front of him. Without hesitation, Steve threw his shield and launched the first attack, but Bucky easily deflected Steve's strike and, during his counterattack, exploited a flaw in Steve's defense, landing a heavy blow. The two then engaged in a fierce hand-to-hand battle, exchanging punches and kicks, with neither gaining the upper hand. At this critical moment, the three helicarriers had reached their designated positions. The weapons systems were fully operational, locking onto over 700,000 potential threats, including Tony at Stark Tower. In just 1 minute, the entire world would fall under Hydra's control. On hearing this, Steve hesitated no longer. He swiftly grabbed Bucky by the throat, lifted him high, and slammed him to the ground with force. He then used grappling techniques like armbars and chokeholds to completely subdue Bucky, rendering him unable to fight. Finally, through Steve's relentless efforts, he reached the chip control panel just before the countdown ended. Meanwhile, Hill remotely redirected the weapon system's targets to the 3 helicarriers themselves. At Hill's command, the 3 helicarriers began firing upon each other. The most powerful weapons in human history ultimately destroyed themselves at the hands of their creators. The massive explosions tore the helicarriers apart, with falling steel beams and debris trapping Bucky beneath them. Seeing his old friend in such dire straits, Steve's heart was filled with conflict and turmoil. But in the end, friendship triumphed over all. Steve staggered to Bucky's side, using the last of his strength to pull him from the wreckage. However, what Steve didn't expect was to be repaid with Bucky's cold, iron fist. Unwilling to fight his friend any longer, Steve made the decision to put down his shield.
You're my friend.
Finish it.
These words instantly triggered Bucky's buried memories. Scenes of him and Steve flashed through his mind the moments they shared. His fall from the train, the painful experience of being transformed by Dr. Zola, and the days they fought side by side through countless challenges. As he watched Steve lose consciousness and fall into the raging river beneath the helicarrier, Bucky hesitated for only a moment before reaching out and pulling Steve to safety. Yet, doubts still lingered in Bucky's mind. He wasn't sure if the man before him was truly the friend he remembered, and he needed further confirmation. At the same time, Natasha, disguised as a World Security Council member, infiltrated the meeting room and subdued Pierce. Pierce was shocked to see that Fury had faked his death. He attempted to use the World Security Council badge as a threat, but Natasha's jamming device rendered it useless. In the end, Pierce was brought to justice and killed. At the end of the film, Fury left S.H.I.E.L.D, planning to return to the front lines as a field agent. With Natasha's help, Steve obtained Bucky's complete file. At this moment, Steve had no idea that this seemingly innocent friendship would become the spark that ignited the civil war among superheroes. What pained Steve even more was that his deep bond with Iron Man would be completely shattered as a result.